Hi, this is Mike Casey for San Mateo County History Stories. We're in the beautiful Japanese garden in San Mateo's Central Park. Now, between the years 1964 to 1966, the sister city of Toyonaka, Japan, the designer Nagao Sakurai, the Garden Club of San Mateo, and the Japanese community of San Mateo spent endless hours here designing and building this beautiful garden. And I must emphasize there were countless volunteer hours by the Japanese American community of San Mateo. This was sort of the time when the Japanese community finally put their roots definitely into the soil of San Mateo County after 90 years of a precarious, uncertain existence. The real story of the Japanese immigration to San Mateo County has to do with land. Not necessarily land in San Mateo County, but land in Japan, where it was at a premium, and young single men had a difficult time purchasing it. Their desire was to live an agricultural life in Japan, but that was increasingly difficult. So they wanted to come to America, make their fortune, and return to Japan. Their first jobs were on the great estates as gardeners and servants. At the turn of the 19th century to the 20th century, the first businesses occurred here in San Mateo, in the city of San Mateo. There was a tailor, a bathhouse, and a grocery. In fact, that grocery, Takahashi's Grocery, opened in 1906, and it's still in business a little bit to the east of me, about 1 mile in this direction. And it's the family business of my old teaching colleague in San Bruno, Phyllis Takahashi. Many of the Japanese men moved to the farms. That led to their success in the flower business. Later on, with the development of a cheesecloth method of preserving chrysanthemums from the hot California sun, the Japanese came quite proficient and also the cut flower industry. By 1939, there were 140 flower growing concerns in Northern California with Japanese Americans at the head. 38% of them were in the county of San Mateo. So despite their success in the flower business, the Japanese were subject to the same yellow peril rhetoric and tactics that plagued the Chinese when they first came over to America. In 1900, they were denied citizenship. In 1913, they were denied the right to be naturalized citizens or own property. In 1924, they were excluded totally from immigrating to America. The Issei, the first immigrants over here, decided to fight back. All along the West Coast, they formed the Japanese Association of America to fight the lobbying tactics of anti-Asiatic leagues that were getting these laws passed. As always is the case with parents and children, there's a generation gap. The second generation of Japanese, native-born here, called the Nisei, became Americanized. They could own property, they were citizens, they could vote. They had never been to Japan, and they wanted to lay down roots here. They formed their own league, the Japanese American Citizens League, to make sure that people knew they were loyal Americans. But with the impending war coming up, that became increasingly difficult. They marched in parades, they took out ads saying, "We too are Americans." But when Pearl Harbor started, that changed everything. Within a few months, FDR issued Executive Order 9066, which gave the military the right to arrest people because of their ancestry. The Issei were arrested by the FBI. General J.L. DeWitt of the Presidio decided to round up all Japanese on the West Coast. 8,000 Japanese from San Mateo County had to report to the Assembly Center at Tanforan Racetrack. May 1942, within 30 days, they had to sell all their property off. Their property was being confiscated. So the work, especially for the flower industry, this was a tremendous blow because it was such a fragile industry. So the work of 2 generations was about to be destroyed. Now, there were some act of kindnesses. I'd like to mention J. Elmer Morish, a banker who was a business associate of the Mori family, the Mori flower growing concern. He took it upon himself to save the property and save the business during the whole of World War II. But not everybody was so lucky. Now, reporting to Camp Topaz with their constitutional rights violated and in the harsh conditions of Utah, it was amazing when Army recruiters reported there. A number of Nisei men reported for duty in the U.S. Army. Many of them worked as interpreters and interrogators, but their greatest renown was in the 442nd Regiment, which saw action in Italy, France, and Germany. In that regiment, there were at least 30 Nisei men from San Mateo County. After the war, the Japanese Americans of San Mateo County and of the nation tried to pick up the pieces without any support from the government, without any government program. They did their best to regain their livelihood, to get back to where they were before the war started. They worked very hard to do that, but they did not forget the injustices of that period of history. I am standing by the koi pond in the Japanese garden, and I'm standing here for a reason. Everything in a Japanese garden has symbolism and means something. The koi are a symbol of strength and resistance to overcoming obstacles. And when you think about that, strength and resistance in overcoming obstacles, I think it's a very apt description of the Japanese experience in San Mateo County. This is Mike Casey for San Mateo County History Stories.